All right, so this last weekend we had another officer-involved shooting that took place on Saturday. It was May 17th, and it was a call that came out, started talking about a guy that was wandering around in a wheelchair and had a gun. There were multiple 911 calls that happened where people were reporting there was a guy in the middle of the road. I believe he was at another location earlier on, and they were talking about a guy that had a handgun and was waving it around or pointed it at someone. Yeah, someone reported that it was pointed at them. Someone else said that they were driving by and he was like holding the gun but pointing at it. And then another one that was, just talking about, again, he was waving a gun around. So obviously a very serious call where it demands a police response, a quick response. And because of multiple callers reporting a gun being involved, that's a potentially deadly encounter. Right? It's a deadly weapon that someone has in their possession that they're wandering around and waving at people and pointing at people. So, and then just recently is when the department released all of the body cam, the 911 calls, the body cam videos, and then the videos from a witness that was involved in all of it. So, all this information about what's going on. And then Officer Jackson, who's the officer that was involved, shows up. And he shows up, he gets out, he has a rifle. Rifles are common throughout the department. They have to be approved. They have to be cleared by the department. And so he shows up, and you can see that he grabs his rifle, getting prepared. The guy's a little ways away from him, and handguns are only so accurate, so effective up to a certain range, whereas rifles maintain a lot more accuracy the further someone is away from you. And so you can keep it to where you can still give commands, you can keep a safe distance, and that's exactly what Officer Jackson does. Like, as soon as he gets out, he starts giving the commands, telling him to stop, and then you can see in the frame where this guy's wheeling away now towards a sidewalk. He was in the middle of the road, so Officer Jackson's here. He's trying to get cars out of the way. He's trying to assess everything. He's giving updates over the radio and trying to say what the guy is doing, try to tell people what the needs he has are, because right now he's just a solo officer. Like, he's just a solo officer that's responding to this. You can hear the sirens in the background, so you can hear that more people are coming, but he's waving traffic by. He's telling them, that the guy's wandering away from him. And obviously he's in a wheelchair. So in order to effectively move the wheelchair, you have to have both hands. So at that point, even when he's walking away from him, you can see, his hands are clear because he's shuffling the wheels along. So that's why you can tell Officer Jackson is just following behind him, because it's not like it's a potentially immediate threat, but right now we can still see his hands. So he's focusing on trying to clear out this other traffic, because that's a potential backdrop. If he moves wrong way or whatever, he could fall into traffic, he could roll into traffic, something else could go, and then you have innocent civilians behind you that aren't involved in this. So that's why, you see him trying to wave traffic through, because he's trying to clear everybody out. And then here you can see, he stopped, and then he turned. And now he's facing him. So he's giving him more commands. He's trying to clear out this other car. He's looking at this guy, assessing, giving commands, right? He does what we would call rack around there, make sure that it is loaded, and then the guy pulls up and produces a gun, and Officer Jackson fires, right? And you see he fires multiple times. Something fell right there, but as Chief said just a little bit ago, it was a hat. It wasn't the gun. So he's still moving around, and he still has a gun. So that's still a threat, because he can pull that up, produce it at any point in time. So then he falls out of the chair, and that's where they're still trying to give him commands. And then they kind of relocate, and the video cuts out. But after that is when they go up and they assess medically and start providing care.
Sure. And there's a better video, I think, that a witness sent in as well, correct?
Yeah, and that's the part where it really becomes clear. So, like, when you look at it in full speed, so when you're looking at the full speed video, it's someone that's driving by, and you can see it's Officer Jackson walking up. And then, it's kind of this quick blur. You can hear the shots, and then you see a guy in the wheelchair, right? So at first glance, it's like, that's not much. But then when you look at this thing slowed down is when you can see Officer Jackson standing there. He was following him, but then he stops. And as you get closer and closer is when you see the suspect in the wheelchair appear. And then when he does appear is when it's very clear that he has a gun. So you just hear that the shot gets fired by Officer Jackson, but you're like, oh, what's going on? There's the guy, and he's got a handgun in his hand pointed at him. He's directly facing him, and it looks like he's got both hands on it, too. So, like, both hands are on the gun. It's pointed at Officer Jackson, and that's the time when you can hear shots being fired. Like, there's a gun pointed at you. It's not just in his hand. It's not like, oh, well, it's in his area. He's got the gun right there in his actual hand. So as far as the officer can tell, like, he is about to shoot me. That is what it looks like. And so this is, a little bit of time, a couple minutes after Officer Jackson gets on scene. So, like, he's there, he's assessing, he's trying to get people out of the way. He's trying to do what he can. He's trying to give this guy commands. He's wheeling away from him. He's following him because he can see his hands. Then he turns and faces him and does this.
And at that point, it's an immediate threat, and he has to take action. So, if he points a weapon at the officer, other people, at that point, he has to do something. I mean, that's the oath we took, is to protect this community. And so, when you have multiple people calling in 911 saying he's pointing a gun at them, it's not something that we can wait around for and see what happens. So, he's getting out, trying to take care of it. And he waited till that absolute last moment where he felt like his safety was in jeopardy. Again, we all want to go home to our families as well. And at that point, he has to take action.
Yeah. And, he did a phenomenal job as a solo officer having to go to this. People are trying to get there as quick as they can, but it is what it is. It's an exigent situation is what we would call it, where you can't wait. You have to go up. There's a public safety threat, and you have to go and deal with it. And it was frustrating initially because the majority of the news stations, I will say, started talking about APD officer shoots a man in a wheelchair with a BB gun. You don't know that. Absolutely. You know nothing about whether it's a BB gun or not. These replicas, and Chief even said it too, these replicas are identical to a real gun. It looks like it. Like, you can't even tell looking at the end of a barrel, right, where the caliber is different. Like, it is virtually impossible to say. But yeah, you see, a man in a wheelchair was shot and killed by an Austin police officer after he allegedly pointed a BB gun at the officer. And then you have police officer fatally shoots a man wielding BB gun in wheelchair, right? Like, all of this time and time again, where they harp on that it was a guy in a wheelchair and it was a BB gun, right? The one who did the best job really was KXAN when they were talking about, there's one dead in shooting involving Austin police officers. That's accurate, right? The officer didn't know that it was a BB gun. Okay. And the reality is it tragic that someone is killed? Yes, absolutely, every single time. For the officer, for the individual who was shot, that the officer had to take action against. But the officer doesn't know whether it's a replica gun.
Right. And you were out there on Saturday morning, and you said in your mind it was like 30 yards from the distance the officer was from the guy with the gun. Like, nobody at that distance can tell whether a gun is real or not.
Exactly. And someone being in a wheelchair, that has no bearing at all as to the actions an officer takes when a gun is pointed at you. Someone in a wheelchair with a gun is just as deadly as someone who is, fully able, standing on two legs. Like, it does not matter, because that gun will reach out and touch you from quite the distance away. So
I just wonder, in my mind, what these news agencies are trying to portray to the public. Because in my mind, nobody believes that we're just out to shoot somebody that's carrying a BB gun in a wheelchair.
Right.
So why do they think that the public's going to believe that? And why do they think that they can get away with that kind of irresponsible reporting?
I wish I had the answer to that. When my assumption generally, tends to be cynical at times, where, we're trying to get people to watch things and to click on things and be like, oh God, this is terrible. I was like, well, that's not the whole story. Like, these headlines should be just a straight reflection of the facts to come, right? And the fact was, an officer-involved shooting happened and one individual died as a result. That's accurate. But then the story should be laying out everything else. And it's just an example of how, like, there's this double standard that exists. It's okay for news media outlets to assume all these things and to try to paint people in a certain light or to paint a situation in a certain light. But then when an officer gets involved in something, like they don't get the benefit of the doubt.
No.
Like they get railed against, So it was actually it was refreshing to see. There were a lot of people that I saw. I was reading through some of the comments. There's a lot of people that were defending. They were like, well, it doesn't matter. You pointed a gun at the officer. Like, it is what it is. So it's unfortunate, but it's kind of an inevitable outcome.
Right. I was reading some of those comments too, and I think the one that kind of sticks out the most is a lot of people asking questions about a mental illness of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when the officers show up, they don't know, they haven't had a conversation with this person. But we do know in our profession that there's a phenomenon where if people are depressed or going through something, they do something called suicide by cop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying I know that's what happened here.
Yeah,
but
we may never know.
But that if you point a gun, whether it's real or not, at a police officer, that's going to be the response that is possible in our realm of scenarios. And in that one, just going from a police officer's standpoint, it does cause a lot of trauma for the officer when they have to take this home and live with it, knowing that they just shot somebody that didn't have a real gun. And again, it's not fair to them. They didn't put themselves in that situation, but it does cause a lot of trauma to the officer because they participated in a suicidal type call.
Yeah, when someone made you the instrument of what
Right.
the ultimate outcome they wanted was. And that, like you said, that's something that officers, that they have to process, they have to deal with it. It takes a heavy toll on people. Oh, and yeah, like the reality in situations like this guy knows that it's the police. You can hear the sirens. You see a car come up. There's an officer in uniform, another officer in uniform that shows up. And, like you can see the patrol car coming up as soon as when he turns and produces the gun is when it's clear that the police are there. So, will we ever know obviously what was going on in this guy's mind? No,
Yeah,
we won't.
the investigation will maybe turn up something.
Maybe
we might know and have some closure in that, but just want to put it out there that's a likely scenario for this.
It is. Oh, sadly, it is. It's not an uncommon thing to happen all across the country, and it has happened here before. Not the first time that it would have happened. So, overall, the officer did a phenomenal job. Did really well. It's a tough situation as always. A lot of people ask too, is like, oh, it's 2 back-to-back. Is this a problem? These are some of the first ones that we've had really, this year. And so it's not really, these things just seem to come in waves. I don't know what it is. I wish I did, but these incidents they tend to happen this in close succession, and then we go a spell where nothing happens. And then, it's sporadic. There's no rhyme or reason to it, because it's based on human behavior, which officers have no control over.
Right. Different people, different areas of town.
Yeah.
And it's just fact specific on each individual case. You can't look at it for patterns. If it was a bigger city and this was happening, every hour in a certain area with the same type of people, maybe you might be able to draw some conclusions about patterns, but this one is just completely independent of the other one, not related, and it's just bad luck.
Yeah,
just
first
things happening.
Yeah, because the first one was up north related to a traffic stop, and this one's down south, and it's related to an individual that's broad daylight, not in the middle of the night, but broad daylight that's rolling around in a wheelchair with a gun. Two very different sets of circumstances. So
I think Chief Davis did a good job in her briefing to the media this afternoon, kind of breaking everything down. So
yeah.
Y'all are interested in it, check out what Chief Davis had to say. I don't think there's any disagreements from the police association on anything that she said or shared.
I think Chief was spot on. So, like we said, anytime these videos come out, we'll try to break down a little bit more, kind of our perspective, what's going on. But as a whole, officer did a great job, and he's okay. So we're proud of him and everything that he's tried to do. Sad that this was the outcome. It's not anything that someone wants, but unfortunately, a lot of this is taken out of the officer's hands. So until next time, y'all, stay safe, stay alert, stay tuned.